Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday interview. Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific, we are here to deliver something awesome. My name is Dave Savage. I'm the CEO of Mortgage Coach, and looking forward to a great interview. Do want to remind everybody on this call, hopefully everybody is a mortgage coach and you have downloaded and activated both of our apps. You know, we're doing training every Wednesday at 11 o'clock just to make sure everybody knows how to use the Mortgage Coach apps, whether it's creating a video from it, whether it's adding content, whether it's sharing content. Make sure you've downloaded these apps. Next week's guest is going to be Realtor Glenn Bill. Glenn is a top performing realtor out of the Indiana market, and he's a 1%er. He's going to be answering questions. So every question you'd like to ask a top 1% realtor, we're going to have an unplugged, candid conversation with him next week. Any questions that you'd like me to ask him that you just can't quite ask a realtor in your own market or someone that you're trying to pursue business from, we're going to ask him those questions. So submit those through GoToMeeting, email those to me directly at David's Mortgage Coach, post them on Facebook, however you want to get the questions to him, get them to us. But next week we're going to be interviewing an unplugged conversation with the top 1% performing realtor. As my co-host today, we have Mr. Anthony Savala, our National Account Director. Anthony, looking forward to doing this call together with you.
Hey, good morning, Dave. Good morning, Mortgage Coach community. I know this call is going to be really valuable, so can't wait to get into it.
Right on. So I want to remind everybody that these calls are recorded. They're posted on our YouTube page the same day. If you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube page, make sure you subscribe to it so that you get alerts as videos get posted. Also, I want to remind everybody that we have added a new share feature to pretty much every place that there's something to share in the RateWatch app. So now you can share Dan Rawich's morning updates. Last week we had Kristen Messerly post a millennial update, and that was something that would be great to share with realtors. So just want to remind that feature's there. You can email, Facebook, text those messages. And then we also edited out of the call that we did with Dan. He did 26 minutes, just his 2016 market update. That is there to share also. So today I'm interviewing Dirk Zeller for the very first time. For anyone who doesn't know Dirk, he is one of the top 25 trainers in the real estate industry. Inman News published who were the most influential and the top trainers of realtors recently, just a week ago, and he's one of the top 25. He trains tens of thousands of realtors annually. So between live events, between online experience, this is what this man does, is he trains realtors. And one of his specialties is teaching them how to improve conversion rates. You know, he's got a lot of top performing realtor teams that are actually working with lenders in a team situation. And we're going to learn what is he teaching them? How is he teaching them how to drive conversion? So Dirk, this is your first time in the community. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about yourself and then walking us through, some of the best practices that you're teaching realtors that you work with, that would be a great start.
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today. Excited to be part of the Mortgage Coach community and really helping you all move that lead conversion to the next level. And gosh, with the birth of MSA agreements and all the different components that we have in the real estate industry, the partnership between mortgage originators and real estate agents, quite frankly, is more powerful today than it ever can be when you look at today's world. Just a little background on me, everybody. I was a top 10 agent in a 4-state region for a large national firm for a number of years. I've had the honor to go on and speak literally around the world and publish a number of best-selling books. But the greatest joy that I have is working with agents and teams and getting their business to a whole nother level, especially in the lead conversion realm. If you want to have a quick workbook here, I've got it in online here on the screen. as well as we can drop it quickly in the chat panel in case any of you want to share it with your real estate partners or want to obviously grab it yourself. Overall, you can do that. Let's get into what we need to work on today, which is really the sales strategy, systems, process to lead conversion and increasing lead conversion. How many of you would say that, hey, your agents are marginal lead conversion? Right? How many of you would say that? And maybe you want to raise your hand, or maybe you want to chat in the chat panel and say, hey, that's me. The agents that I work with, I recognize that they're not tapping into the leads at a level that they should be or could be overall. And I think part of it is this, what we call the core four at Real Estate Champions. And in fact, let me throw on my webcam here real quick as well. That way we'll be able to visually see each other and functionally work with each other there as well. Hey everybody, glad you're here. The core four really is, what are the scripts that these agents need to use and you can use, and I'm going to give you some scripts today, everybody, that you can use, make some quick little edits and adjustments to, man, that really work well in terms of converting leads. What's the strategy, right? What is the strategy that we're going to use? What is the system? Right, there are lots of systems out in terms of the marketplace that agents are using, right, and they're wanting their mortgage partners to use them. Boomtown, Commission Inc., Agent Jet, Real Geeks. I mean, there are more systems on an ongoing basis. Conversion, Tiger Leads. What are the skills, right? What are the skills? Actual sales skills underpinning and the scripts. So these core four, and here's the real battle that we've discovered. And everybody, we discovered this from working with elite teams. We had 67 of our current and past clients on the Wall Street Journal 250 list this last year when it was published this last summer. What I will tell you is these four are like a combination lock, and that would be true of the online leads that you were generating as well as that your agents are generating and you're working with your agents on. It's like a four combination lock, and if you have all four numbers, bang, you explode lead conversion. But if you don't, if you're missing one of those four numbers, right, whether it's strategy, whether it's system, whether it's scripts, any one of those four, the lock doesn't open. And that's one of the big challenges that we are having with agents and consumers. And so let's dive into those four. Let's look at the strategy. What is the strategy? And Dave, you and I were talking about this earlier. One of the things is really important that these agents get the mortgage originators into the relationship earlier, into the lead conversion process earlier, because the agent is still looked at as a salesperson. The mortgage originator, you all, are looked at as more in the consultant realm. And there's so much value that you transfer, especially through the products that the mortgage coach is providing, right? The total cost analysis and using that as an opportunity. All the different components, and Dave, maybe you can chime in here and throw some strategy that you think in terms of what we need to get in the agent's hands quicker or in the prospect's hands quicker.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we all know that, you know, as an originator, you want to be introduced to the prospect as soon as possible. You don't want to just wait until they have found it, property in escrow, or they're looking for a pre-qual. You want to be more than a pre-qual. And I think the two most common mortgage coach scenarios are a rep versus own. You know, when a loan officer can really help make the case for buying a home versus renting, and they can do that with graphs and charts. They can do that in an incredibly compelling way. That should just be modus operandi whenever a realtor is going to be working with a first-time home buyer. They're like, hey, talk to my loan officer so they can do a rep versus own analysis, and they can make sure you're pre-qualified. So you really know what this looks like for. And then, you know, the other one, I think it's equally as important, is a family that's going to move up. I think doing a move up analysis so the family really understands the economics. Hey, you're selling this home, you're buying this home. Why buy now? Why should you list your home, go buy another one? The lifestyle is usually pretty obvious. That's the realtor's wheelhouse. Bigger house, better school district. But the economics, the mortgage coach loan officer is uniquely armed with graphs and charts to make the case for buying now. So those are the two, everybody you have on this call, Dirk, is a mortgage coach, and they can do that game-changingly better than every other loan officer in America.
But they have to get in earlier, and that has to be the focus, right? Getting in earlier at that, thinking about a decision-making process, and the agent and the mortgage originator has to position, and this is, again, my view, that right now is a rare moment in time. Right, it's a rare moment in time that we have still the historic interest rates. It's a rare moment in time that we're continuing to see the appreciation, and in the future, it's going to cost obviously people more. And consumers are in that thought process that I can wait and I can wait and I can wait, and hey, I can buy that same home this fall for the same price. That's not the case. Because of the low inventory, the overall absorption rates in the marketplace, it's really about getting face-to-face and getting the right strategy. And from an agent perspective as well as a mortgage originator perspective is, hey, how are we doing in these conversations? Are we having conversations with the prospects, or are we getting to the appointment? The most important thing that your agent partners have to focus on is getting the appointment, getting face-to-face. One of the best ways to qualify, especially an online prospect, is to sell the value of the face-to-face and get them face-to-face. The last place a lower motivation prospect wants to be is face-to-face with a salesperson. And so the job of an agent is to get the right strategy to get face-to-face with the prospect first. According to NAR, 67% of the buyers buy through the first agent they meet with. Now think about that. 2/3 of the buyers buy through the first agent they meet with. The choke point is the ability of the agents and consumers to get face-to-face faster. And it's speed to lead, but it's also getting face-to-face. Those two are in concert together. The MIT study that we've probably all looked at and evaluated at some level, there's no substitute for the strategy of speed to lead. Right, we've got 100 times increase in reach rate if we're inside of 5 minutes making contact instead of 30. We've got a 21 times increase converting that lead, not 21% everybody, 21 times inside a 5-minute call out as opposed to a 30-minute reach out. Zillow did a study recently where they recognized that a Zillow lead, which is what I would call a direct inquiry lead, they're generally directly inquiring about a specific property. If that agent hasn't responded to that Zillow lead in 20 minutes, the Zillow lead thinks the agent's an idiot, right? That they are non-responsive, unprofessional, and they, in essence, cross that agent off the list. So there's essentially no substitute for speed to lead and for using the right sequencing and using the right calling times and activities. In the MIT study, they recognized that 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. was the absolute best time to qualify and contact leads. 4 to 6 p.m. was the second best time. Middle of the day was the worst overall. 64% lower than all of the other types of leads. In the end, it's about the core four, right? It's about the strategy and it's about the system. What is the system that's functionally being used, right? Overall, what is the system that's being used? So when we link these, are the system and the strategy congruent, right? Are they aligned with the objectives? Are they aligned with performance goals that we're trying to accomplish? And then what are the skills, right? What are the sales skills? Do they have the sales skills that are necessary? I can tell you, everybody, in 25 years of being in the real estate industry and being a thought leader in the real estate industry, I can tell you the sales skills today are the worst that I've probably ever seen them in that 25-year period. Even in lead agents, we've gone away from sales skills, sales strategy, sales process to almost exclusively relationship selling. And relationship selling is a great selling strategy, but you have to make sure. There was a great landmark book that was written a couple of years ago called The Challenger Sale. It was done by the Harvard Business Review think tank in the sales division. And they really recognized that having good sales skills and good sales strategy beyond relationship selling techniques was really how people became top sales performers, the blending of those two aspects. And then fourth, everybody, is the scripts. And in the workbook, there are scripts and dialogues specifically to help you and to help your agent partners that we have perfected and tested and worked with in terms of these teams and agents. Now, the typical response to an online lead specifically is going to be, hey, I'm just looking, I'm not ready for a real estate agent yet. That's the typical response that we are going to hear. And that typical response causes agents to not convert prospects. They immediately think of that the prospect is low motivation. But understand that's not the case. The case is that these people are tapping into what we call the brush off. And what we've discovered is that over 75% of the time, a typical prospect will tell an agent, hey, I'm just looking, I'm not ready for a real estate agent yet. Hey, I'm too busy to talk in this moment. And they lack what they need to convert. And here's why I say that. When you or I or anybody else, when we go out to a retail shopping environment, we go to Dillard's or Macy's or Nordstrom's, how many of you, when you walk in, you encounter the clerk who says, hey, thanks for coming to Macy's today, may I help you? How many of you instantaneously say, no, I'm just looking? Think about that. How many of you honestly, instantaneously say, no, I'm just looking? That's a brush off. See, you've got to understand, and your agent partners need to understand, that that prospect has been preconditioned. They've used that script literally thousands of times, and that is why they're using it now. And they're using it now because it works. It has worked for them before, and they've used it so frequently and so often that they can't change that. And I'm telling you, everybody, you've got to recognize that that's part of the equation, right? That you and I are being brushed off, that we're being moved out, that your agents are being moved out with these leads and opportunities quickly, efficiently. Now, here's a fascinating study, and I haven't gotten 2015 numbers yet, but here is the trajectory of internet leads. Look at the explosion that we've seen in internet leads in the last 4 or 5 years. In 2011, we had more sales than internet leads. 2012, we had more internet leads than sales. Over and over. I mean, we saw an explosion over the last handful of years. And so what you've got to look at is we've got to get these folks face-to-face, whether it's with you all, right, in terms of meeting face-to-face in your office with that prospect, to evaluate their viability, or whether it's with an agent at their office or at Starbucks right, or doing some online buyer tour. And we've got to understand, and here's one of the most powerful questions that your agents can ask a prospect. When that prospect is an example, let's say it's an internet lead, and that prospect, and it could be somebody walking in their open house. It could be any type of lead, but it's especially powerful with an internet lead. You use a framing question, or what I call a triggering event question. Was there a compelling event that caused you to come to the open house today? Or can I ask, what was the compelling event that caused you to register on our website? I want to know the triggering event. That could be another term you use, a triggering event. What was the impetus? What kick-started your search process? Whether that's upgrading their home, downgrading their home, whether it's a first-time home buyer, there was something that caused them or triggered them to register on the website, raise their hand, go to the open house, inquire, hit the call capture, write text back site, whatever it is. And that's one of the goals of an agent from a scripting standpoint. Now, I'm going to pull down my webcam just to give you a better look at scripts here, everybody. But, you know, if I'm in that, hey, I'm not ready, right, or just looking response, let me teach you and give you some value here that you can respond to. When somebody says to me, hey, I'm just looking, to any of my clients, hey, I'm just looking, we say, hey, I certainly understand that you're probably in that early information gathering stage. Would that be correct? We say a statement that lowers sales resistance, that prospect says, wow, this guy gets it. Let me ask you this. Hey, it looks like you're looking around for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,500 square foot home in the XYZ school district. It seems that that's what you're looking for based on your searching. You seem to be around the $300,000 price range. What if something like that came along, really good quality, and it came on the market at $280,000? What would you do? Put them in a situation, give them what they want or what they might indicate they want or what they've been searching around at, and see their reaction. Test the response, test the reaction, test what they're doing, and then give them a transition to close, whether it's alternate choice, direct offer, permission to close. Let's get an appointment. If I can't get face-to-face at the office, I'm going to downsell to face-to-face at a Starbucks at a neutral site. If I can't get that, I'm going to downsell again to a home property. Or I can use, here's the second option in terms of scripts. If somebody says to me, hey, I'm just looking, hey, that's just fine that you're just looking around in your early stage. You might be interested to know that actually in that early stage that you're in, a real good agent can add a lot of value, or a real good realtor can add a lot of value. Gosh, if we could spend just a couple of minutes together, I can save you quite a bit of time and help you avoid some of the pitfalls that a lot of agents, that a lot of consumers make in that early, just looking stage like you're in. I can direct you to some resources and some websites and some opportunities and some data that you probably don't have access to that will be real valuable in that early just looking stage that will make it a whole lot more fun and productive for you. And then I'm going to transition to close for an appointment. Let me give you a secret, everybody. That's not part of your workbook. That's not part of, it's a bonus. The problem the agents are really having is the fact that consumers feel that they can get all the information they need on their own, online, without the use of an agent. It's the DIY effect. It's the fact that they can go search for property and they think that the information they have online is the same information that the agents possess. Let me say that again. The consumer thinks that when they're going on Zillow and Trillion, Realtor.com, and all the different web portals and sites, that they have access to the exact same information that the agent does. And that's entirely not true. We have to be able to, together, both you all in the mortgage industry with your agent partners, be able to deliver something the consumer can clearly see and understand they don't have access to that. And that's some of the power of lead conversion, is delivering that something or series of some things they don't have. Now, I also think, everybody, you've got to look at the fact that we've got a pyramid of persuasion and sales. And the lowest section of the pyramid is what I would characterize as the information zone, right? That we're fundamentally disseminating information. In fact, and let me grab my pointer here. In that lower part, right? And so I do think we've got to look at the information zone, right, in this lower section. In the middle section, we got the communication zone or connection zone, right, where we use text messaging and video email, and we open a connection or we open a little card of the relationship. But the biggest thing that we have to do is we have to move prospects up to the top into the persuasion zone, where the phone call enables us to have an interactive relationship. We have a dialogue instead of a monologue, right, where we can get face-to-face, personal meetings, highest form of persuasion. We need to make sure that we, as well as the agent community, is trying to move prospects up into the persuasion zone, where we have the greatest amount of influence in generating an opportunity for a prospect, right? And online consumers are certainly the fastest growing niche of the real estate industry in terms of people using online in their early stage. And we've got to be able to serve them and effectively convert them and engage with them. But here's the thing. 47% of the buyers found their home online themselves and then connected with a real estate agent. That's according to NAR's most recent NAR home buyer and seller report. 33% of the buyers found their home through a real estate agent. So in other words, that agent said, hey, whoa, gosh, I got the right home for you, Susie and Marge. Let's go out and look at it. 47% of the time, Susie and Marge found that right home. And they found it themselves in their online research. So we've got to make sure that we've got clear, distinctive strategy for these e-consumers, online consumers, because it's going to continue to intensify. And we need to focus and get our agents to focus on minimum response times right in that 5-minute sequence. And this is just another quick little study that was done by HBR in terms of response time, response rates overall, and less than 26% of companies do that well in terms of response time. The Wave Group, internet, online, very adept group. Victor Lund is the leader of that group. Great guy, very intelligent. They secret shopped online 76 different real estate companies through thousands of customer interactions, and 47%, in their findings, 47% of the consumers, the agents never responded to the consumer at all, ever at all, 47%. The biggest move, I think, in the internet world in lead generation and lead conversion is, in my view, this one right here, where my arrow is pointed. And that is the fact that frequency of use has exploded. If you look at frequency of use 10 years ago, it pales compared to frequency of use today. And that's what you got to look at. They're coming back again and again, and the agent community needs to follow up more assertively overall. We need to make sure that we're working that realm and engaging with that realm, because the first step in any age demographic now is going online and looking for properties. Going online and looking for properties. Interesting, if you look down 4 lines, everybody, that you all have at the lender level, some of the consumers are going directly to you in the first-time home buyer category in that younger age demographic, right? 5, 6, 9% of them are coming directly to you. They're also talking to a friend or relative, pretty high concentration overall. And I just think we've got to make sure that we're prepared for the right strategy, the right system, the right process, the right engagement, so we can convert these leads at a more powerful level. The consumers are going to continue to go online, search, and look for opportunities. The DIY consumer, this online consumer, thinks they know more than most real estate agents. They have access to the same information, and they don't need that agent overall. It's a trend we're seeing, more consumers going to the listing agents directly because they think they're going to get a better deal and they don't see value. I would help your agents take a look and evaluate between what they can see as an agent and what the buyer can see. One of the things that we coach our agents to do is literally to pull up on their iPad their access as an agent, to pull up on their laptop a consumer's access through Zillow or Trulia to Realtor.com to the same property and compare the information so they can sell in the gap. In other words, what is the difference between the consumer using Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com and the home on XYZ Street? What is their agent access? Usually it's, comments, maybe days on the market, full property history. The agent can see all the price reductions and the past times that the property was on the market, when it was on the marketplace. They've got a full history of details. They've got more complete agent comments or even a special section. They've got tax information. And I'm not saying that all of these are present in your local marketplace as a difference. I'm saying this is typical. And for you to help your agent community sell in the gap, your agent partners sell in the gap, that's critical. I've also included a quick little form in here that we work with agents on in terms of utilizing a transfer to you and lending information and strategy. Everybody, I have to tell you, it's really about this conversion strategy and process, right? It's about the ability to convert these leads more effectively in today's marketplace and work with consumers to generate clear and distinctive and professional differences overall. Now, I'm happy to take any questions. I'm happy to look at different opportunities that you might need in terms of helping you engage and helping you convert leads better and more effectively.
That was fantastic, Dirk. I think you really outlined a tremendous amount of value for our organization, our community. I'd love to really unpack some of those value propositions. So as we've got plenty of time here to really dial into the questions. So as the questions are coming in, everybody, please use the GoToWebinar control panel, type in those questions, and we'll continue to answer those. I had a couple questions really just in terms of speed to lead, Dirk. I want to talk about that. And okay. I think, for our community, one of the challenges, and feel free to leave up your slides or your contact information, and for everybody, the slides that he's using, those are actually made available within the GoToWebinar handout section. So if you're having any trouble getting that, please email support@Mortgage Coach. We'll be sure to get those for you. But Dirk, your point, you're talking about, hey, how important it is to get to these leads faster. I think for loan officers and probably for agents as well, we're always, in the grind, that day-to-day grind of the business, and you've got, hey, I've got to get back with my processor. We got to follow up on those pieces of documentation. But meanwhile, here comes that lead. And I think sometimes it's hard for someone to shut off, the administrative side and realize that I need to take care of that opportunity now, because if I don't, it could potentially be gone forever. So if you could just speak on that, about prioritization and really how you really help people deal with that.
Well, I mean, there are two basic types of leads that, let's call it, we're getting if it's an online lead. Let's call it an online lead, okay? And you've got to look at prioritization, meaning a registration lead that is hit, as an example, somebody's website and created a registration because we forced them to do so after they've looked at 1 property, 0 property, or 3 properties, right, where the box comes up and it requires them to register. That particular lead is not expecting a callback and maybe not even wanting a callback. That doesn't mean that you don't call them back, everybody. It just means that they're in a different place. They're in more of that just looking category. If it's a direct inquiry lead, Zillow, Trillia, Realtor.com, it isn't been squeezed, they're actually inquiring about a particular property or something that they need, that is what I would characterize as a much higher level convertible lead, and I've got to drop everything to get to that lead immediately, because there's an expectation of speed to lead that comes with that group. I would not leave voicemail messages to either group without laying out a sequence. So in other words, as an example, in a direct inquiry lead, right, that Zillow, that Trillia, that Realtor.com, I wouldn't leave a voicemail message the first time I attempt out. Maybe I'm going to call them inside of 5 minutes. I would then try to recall them within 15 to 20 minutes, and that is when I would leave my first voicemail message. Everybody, the curiosity factor, there is a curiosity factor of consumers, and some people will return your phone call because you didn't leave a message. And you want to tap into that, and that would be that direct inquiry lead, but I'm not going to go beyond the 20 minutes because, quite frankly, they may think I'm non-responsive if I don't at least leave a message in that time frame. With that registration lead, I'm going to pause and probably not leave a message and then click into maybe calling them between 4 and 6 o'clock this afternoon, or maybe first thing tomorrow morning, and after 3 attempts then would be my first voicemail message to that registration lead. So those are key distinctions in terms of lead type and lead strategy and lead process, everybody. And you want to help your agent partners, again, with what are the right scripts, what's the right strategy, right? What are the skills that they're lacking in terms of sales skills, and do they have a good system? Good system in terms of where they're managing the leads, where they're converting the leads. Are they dropping into a CRM? Are they using an online platform that's got good drip, good components? So that would be one of the arenas that I would focus with them on.
Well, that was great. I think if you're listening right now, you just heard several different approaches to several different types of lead sources. I think one thing I got from that too, Dirk, is if you're currently experiencing different types of lead funnels to your business, you have leads coming from different areas, really get a sense of what that lead experience is like. To your point, Dirk, if it's just a form-gated type of lead, that's the internet lead they got, it's not going to be the strongest lead versus someone, seeking out information. And for you as a loan professional listening in today, understanding the leads that I receive, if I was that lead, what would that process be like for me? So you understand that a little bit better. I loved how you mentioned situational questioning, Dirk. I think that's so valuable to really get a pulse check on a client. One of the things we talked about last week, I think you know this, is this spring is anticipating to be one of the biggest years in production for loan officers and real estate agents. So getting ready to be as efficient as possible. Well, we already talked about prioritization, understanding who's a low motivation client, someone who may be just doing that brush off, which is really the next point I thought we could touch on, how you really stress the fact that while somebody might seem low motivation, that really might not be the case, and by not asking the right questions, you could be missing an opportunity about that. So just again, in terms of how you identify low motivation clients versus high motivation client, what is maybe the top 2 things you're looking for to know that a client's really serious about moving forward? You mentioned face-to-face meetings and the willingness to accept, which I thought was clear. If there's anything else you could add some value on.
Yeah, I think in the old strategies of really what I would call qualifying a prospect, right? And I'm not advocating anybody working with a low quality prospect here, but when somebody's hitting a website or they're doing an initial search or they're in that registration lead area, they aren't necessarily at the stage yet where they want to be qualified. And I find that agents may probe too much on financial qualification or financial motivation, and not focus enough on getting the appointment. And I'll give you an example. The hardest thing to get is an appointment. And if I get the appointment, if I secure the appointment with a prospect, and they're agreeing to meet me face to face. Maybe I've had to downsell them to meeting at Starbucks, right, on Thursday this week in the afternoon, and I've convinced them that it's valuable to them, and hey, let me buy you a cup of coffee. And it's not valuable to them based on I'd love to meet with them, which is the typical phrase that most agents use. It's valuable because they'll understand the current and emerging market conditions better, that they'll understand the timing of the opportunity in today's marketplace. They'll receive some information about where the market is trending to that they don't have access to now. Any of those components I can sell in the value to the value of the meeting. If I find out after you've said, hey, yeah, Dirk, I'll meet with you, and then I start asking some financial questions, or I start asking some motivational based questions, and I find out that, hey, whoa, you've got a 480 FICO score, I can easily say, gosh, in my excitement, Susie, I probably got the cart in front of the horse. Based on your responses to a few more questions, I think probably the best course of action is this. And I recommend a different course of action, and I undo the appointment. We've got to be more fixated at selling the appointment and selling the value of that face-to-face, and if we find out as we're probing further that that prospect is not ready or not in the position for that face-to-face, then you undo it. Right? You say, hey, whoa, gosh, in my excitement, I kind of made a mistake. I recommended something that was probably out of order here. Here's actually what I would recommend. And everybody, the thing we're missing is number of appointments, getting more face-to-faces, and you all know this. I'm not giving you something that you don't know, but sometimes it's more important to hear something that you know that maybe you're not doing than hearing something new. And the front end of the income chain, whether you're a real estate agent or mortgage originator, is the number of appointments that you're booking and conducting face-to-face with viable prospects. That's how you push the needle or move the needle in terms of production. Okay?
Well,
Did that answer the question?
Well, that's a good answer, great answer, actually, because for us in the loan originator world, when you look at our processes and what we know has to happen for us to hit our goals, understanding that we need to have agents face-to-face with clients and driving that early, incubating those experiences as early as possible. Ultimately, if you think about when everybody hears Dirk, I know Dirk, because this is the first time me and you had a chance to talk, but I think everyone listening in understands how well prepared you are. You mentioned scripting. While many loan originators don't rely on scripting, surprisingly, what they find is by adding a couple of these scripts or the framing in which you're talking about today can really, really push that needle, to your point, oftentimes it's something you're not doing that could really drive results. It's not about, boiling the ocean either. It's about really implementing a couple key best practices that can make a difference. A good question came in I thought you'd like to take a crack at. And actually, as I get this up, if you could show your email and other contact screen, we had a question come in. Someone would like that. I think it was one of the last ones you had, so if you could move to that one, that'd be great for them. And the question is, what about texting as communication strategy for initial contact if you can't reach via the phone? So to your point, you called within the 5-minute window as soon as possible. You then called again, and it's time to leave a voicemail at that time. Would you recommend a text strategy prior to a voicemail, or how would you approach that?
Yeah, I think texting is very effective. It's just, but recognizing you're not going to convert the lead, you're going to connect with the lead. Right? We're not going to functionally convert the lead off a text. We're going to create an opening or a dialogue back and forth, and functionally that's going to enable us to open that conversation. A text is not get you an appointment in most cases. Does that make sense?
That's very insightful. I think to your point about the pyramid of persuasion, and if we could jump back to that for a second, I think that's exactly what you had already touched on, trying to understand the value of certain touch points, certain types of touch points, which I think could be extremely valuable. So yeah, if you want to jump to one of those slides or jump to the contact screen, I know we had a couple of those questions in. So that was a great question. Thanks for asking that in the community. Here we go. Perfect. So for that question and other types of communication methods, I know Dirk covered a lot, and again, these slides are available. We are recording this, so please take advantage of that, and obviously reach out to Dirk.
But if you look at the pyramid of persuasion, everybody, right, a text message is in the connection zone. Let me throw out an additional, everybody. If you're not using video email, you're missing a huge opportunity. If your agents are not using video email at some level, they're missing a huge opportunity, right? Because the consumer has a perception of real estate agents, and it's generally not very positive. And by having a video email that goes out to a prospect and a personal connection, right, via video email, you've lowered kind of the sales resistance, or you've removed the perception of the gold chain leisure suit salesperson and replaced it with a video of you or of your agents, right, and your agent partners to prospects. And you all know what I mean by gold chain leisure suit salesperson.
Anyone who's been in the business definitely knows that. And as far as your point about video communication, we, as Mortgage Coach members, the Mortgage Coach community, everybody on this call, we know that the best Mortgage Coach top producing users leverage video communication. If you were to pull our top users and their production numbers, you would find they're implementing video. We recommend, just getting comfortable with it. You don't have to be a pro, but just really get comfortable with the idea that you're going to send somebody a video voicemail and what that process is like. So there's all the content.
You're better off it not being perfect. If you look at the studies on the slick produced videos are not the ones that are most watched. And in fact, everybody, the recent study was done, if you're producing one-off videos for a particular person or prospect, if you hold up a grease board, right, a small grease board that has Hi Susie on it right next to your frozen face, the open rate goes through the roof on a video email.
Huge value right there. And that's what we're talking, open rate, right? Reaching the customer. That's another part of, some of the communications. We all approach the busiest spring buying season in a long time. Again, at my point, and I know talking to the Mortgage Coach community, efficiently handling, these opportunities is very important. Dirk, question came in. I think this is a great one for everybody listening in. What would be a good response if a prospect says, I have an agent I'm working with, sort of, but I'm not necessarily married to him or her?
Okay, so this is great. Thank you for asking this. Let me take a half a step back, everybody, and I'll handle two questions. The most common response that your agent partners are using in qualifying a prospect is they are asking the question, are you working with another agent, to a new prospect? It's the age-old question that's been taught for years. What you've just described is somebody that is working with another agent. They aren't committed. That's the question. Are you committed to another agent? Or do you have an agent in mind whose services and representation you would utilize when the timing is right for you? The issue is not working or kind of using. The issue is committed. And that's what has to be asked. Now, there are only a couple potential responses. There's, yes, I'm committed to Susie Q, right? Hey, I've bought 3 homes for her, or she's done a great job for us, or she's my sister-in-law, or whatever it is. No, we're not committed to anybody. And then this middling response that you just described, right? Hey, if this agent finds me the perfect deal and the perfect opportunity, I might use them, but I don't have loyalty yet. And the issue is loyalty, everybody. The issue is commitment, whether it's to you all or it's to the agent. I mean, the agents don't get buyer agency contracts signed, most of them, in the way that they should early on. They don't get commitment. They don't have a loyalty discussion, right? You all know that as a mortgage originator, right, the commitment comes generally when you have taken their application and money. That's the commitment part, right? You know, you've taken the appraisal fee, and you've taken the any other fees that you're charging on an upfront basis, whether that's credit report or appraisal fee or both. That's when you know you have commitment. Agents need the same thing. They need to position for the same thing. Hopefully that answered the question.
Oh, that definitely did. That is one of those things for us, again, as originators working with agents. I think you talked about helping an agent really make the most of their business and their processes. So, what do you think are some of the things you can do from a scripting perspective that could help an agent, and maybe asking an agent partner how they like to be cross-sold? And I would ask you, what do you think is one of the best ways to introduce, just a general framing off the top of your head kind of thing. As an originator, if I was introducing my agent to a new buyer because I wanted that buyer to use my agent, what would a normal handoff look like, and how would you frame a
from the mortgage originator to the agent?
Exactly. Framing the real estate agent to the prospective buyer, a lead for the.
The first thing I would do is I would not frame the concept of finding somebody a home that they love, 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 love. And the reason why I wouldn't frame that concept, because only about 50% of the people, when NAR surveyed them, that is the #1 service they wanted from a real estate agent. That number used to be 70%. That's part of this degradation we've seen and movement we've seen downward, where the consumer is more do-it-yourself. I would frame the negotiating skills, the security, the protection, right, the responsiveness of that particular agent over the, what I would call the generalized aspects of finding a home they would love, 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 right? The number 2 and 3 services that consumers want from agents are negotiation, skillful negotiation, either in price or terms, and those make up 24% of the #1 service most consumers want from real estate agents. I would sell something that's different than most agents and most loan originators are selling, and I would stay away from the concept of finding them a home that they'll love, or finding them the perfect home, which I think is just the most nauseating phrase in the whole lexicon of the real estate industry, because the perfect home doesn't exist, and you've just set yourself up for a long, protracted series of showings if you use that phrase or as an agent.
That actually is a great point, right? Don't make any more work for yourself, especially in a busy home buying season, than you need to, especially really something that you're setting expectations that are almost unreasonable. That's excellent. So thanks for answering that one. I definitely want to pull the screen again, say thank you to you, Dirk. I want, if Marcy, you could push out a poll to the attendees and get some feedback about the call today. Remember, this is recorded. Remember, we will have the slides available for all the mortgage coach community, so you could definitely take advantage of that. And to your point, Dirk, about that, the idea of being able to provide differentiation, provocative insights, something that is really going to make somebody realize that you're a different level of mortgage professional, real estate professional, because of the educational insight you provide, can just be a competitive advantage. That's why the mortgage coach community is who we are, and that's why we'll continue to get better at that. So please, everybody who's listening in, if you could answer the quick poll about today's questions. And if there's any other questions coming in, please continue to send them in. And while we wait for that to finish out, it looks like we can also just remind everybody about next week. I'm going to take the screen back here if we can close that poll. And fantastic results from the call. Everybody loved the call, Dirk. Thanks again for being such a tremendous contributor to our community. I'm sure we'll have you back in the near future. Those slides are great. I hope everybody takes the opportunity to take a look at those. Remember, our training is coming up for the rest of the week, and next week, of course, take advantage of the training. It's there for you. Our Mobile Wednesdays has been a big hit. I always remind the members about that. Access to our calendar, please check out our calendar. We'll continue to update it with our sessions and everything else we've got going on in the weeks to come. And just a reminder, for next week, please, the questions for Glenn Bill, email support@mortgagecoach.com with those. We'll be taking those questions all week. So with that said, just last words for you, Dirk, if you'd like to leave any parting words for our community. Again, thank you. Really appreciate the time today.
My pleasure, Anthony. Loved working with you all. If you need anything for your agent partners, our contact information has been on screen. Look forward to helping you in any way that we can generate more income for you and your partners.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and have a great day, Mortgage Coach community. Cheers, everyone.